Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This video, I'm going to be going over the MLB playoff races. We have about 12 to 14 games left for most teams. So there's only a couple of teams that aren't in the playoffs that still have a chance left. But overall, I'm going to be kind of predicting what I think is going to happen over the last 12 games for each team, predicting which team's going to end up where, as well as predicting a World Series champion. I did this back in August. You can check that video out. I'll put that in the comments below. But some things have changed from there. My predictions are obviously going to be a little bit different from there. I'm starting to get some heat because people were watching for prediction videos. Seeing that, thought it's time to do a little bit of an update, have a little bit more clarity, and I went over the schedules for basically all the teams that are left to see if they have a shot, and that's kind of helped me decide where I'm going to put each team. This time, I'm going to start with the National League because last time I did the American League first, so I thought I would switch it up. So I think for the easiest part for me to do this, I'm going to put who I think is going to be number one in the National League. I think it's almost secured at this point. Not really going to be too much of a debate. They're going to get a first round bye. We have the LA Dodgers, number one seed. They're going to have home field advantage throughout the National League playoffs. I don't think there's too much more to add for them at this point. Number two, second team I am predicting to get a bye is going to be the Atlanta Braves. Right now they are, I think, exactly tied with the New York Mets. I do think, realistically, if we take a look at their schedule, they have the Philadelphia Phillies starting this weekend, 4 times, Washington, New York Mets, as well as Miami. The big series, and I think this is what it's going to come down to, is that series with the New York Mets. Really, if the Mets come out and sweep that series, I'm going to give it to them, obviously. But at this point, with everything I know and kind of how I think, the power rankings, all that stuff intertwined, I'm picking the Braves to get that second round bye. So that pretty much makes it pretty clear who number 3 is going to be. Not too much to talk about with them. St. Louis Cardinals. Now, they've got the division essentially on lock. So many games up on the Brewers. I didn't even look at the Cardinals schedule to see if they're closing it out. But that does bring us to the conversation of the wild card. So we got 4 teams that are going to be in the wild card, and whoever doesn't win this division, in my opinion, a pretty clear favorite to be number 4 seed, because they can't be the number 3 seed. The number 3 seed automatically to the next division winner. So the number 4 seed is going to go to the New York Mets in this case. Again, I did look at their schedule because it was a little bit important when it comes to the Atlanta Braves situation. They have Oakland, Miami, Atlanta, and Washington. So it's kind of the same as the Braves. A little bit interchanged there where the Braves play the Phillies for that 4 games where they have Oakland. But it's going to come down to that series against each other, and I am giving the Braves that edge. This is going to be super tight, honestly. Whatever team, these two can be interchanged, and it's going to be interchanged in a lot of different people's opinions. So there's that. But these next 5 and 6, these are the 2 wildcard spots that are really still up for grabs. Right now we have San Diego in the lead by a little bit, followed by the Phillies, followed by the Brewers. Phillies currently, while I'm filming this, on a 5-game losing streak. Padres on a 4-game winning streak, as well as the Brewers have been pretty hot over it. I think the Brewers are 1.5 games back from the Phillies. And believe it or not, I'm going to put them here. I do have the Phillies being the team to miss. A lot of it has to do with their schedule down the stretch. They play the Braves 4 times. They do play the Cubs and Nationals, but then they also play the Astros. And I think just the fact that they're on this losing streak, and right now they have 1 more game against the Blue Jays as well. This losing streak in this part of the season is going to play into a factor. And I just think that the Brewers have a little bit of an edge over them to take that final seed away from them. They play the Reds, the Cardinals, Miami, and Arizona. So overall, they have 1 series against the Cardinals. They have 4 games against the Reds, 3 against the Marlins, and then the Diamondbacks in their last series. It's going to be pretty much an advantage there. I think they can make up the 2. It's going to be 1.5 games, I think, after today. I think they can make it up with the schedule difference, and that's going to knock off the Phillies. And that'll bring us to the last seed. I do have the Padres holding on. Colorado, Dodgers, White Sox, and San Francisco are their 4 series that they have left. They've been one of the hotter teams, and overall, on paper, they've been stronger all season. They might not have performed to it all season long, but at least over this last month, they have met expectations and got that little bit of cushion. They do need to go on a pretty rough losing streak. And really, their matchups aren't simple. Like with the Dodgers, they got division rivals and the Colorado Rockies. They're going to end the season against the Giants. And intertwined in there, they're going to play a White Sox team that is technically still in the race, and that could be a very big series. So it's not going to be easy, but this is my prediction for the 6 teams to make the playoffs. So, sorry, Phillies fans, I am now predicting you out. I think in the last video, I had you in. So that brings us to the first round. It's a 3-game series, so the home team is going to host all 3 games. So in this case, it'd be the Mets and the Cardinals. I'm going to start here. Cardinals versus Brewers. I am giving a 3-game series at home. I'm going to predict the Cardinals to move along. And since it's bracket-based and they would play the Atlanta Braves, the way the bracket is set up, they made it so the number 1 seed will not be able to play a division rival or like a division winner in the second round. So number 3 is always going to match up against number 2 if that's the case, or 6 and 2. Going to this next one. This is going to be a great series if this plays out. I think early on in the season I would have given the edge to the Mets, but I'm starting to be a little bit concerned, honestly. But at this rate, I am still going to give them the win here. That's going to be my prediction. They're still going to get the win, and they're going to face off against the Dodgers team in the second round. So the second round is going to be a best of 5. Yeah, so this series, Cardinals, Atlanta Braves, just setting up to be a spectacular series. Cardinals have the offense that I think can match up with the Braves for sure, and that's what's kind of given me the edge over the Mets over the past couple months, if you've been watching that. So, this is going to be a tough one. If honestly, it's going to be a best of 5. I am going to give a slight edge. I'm going to pick the Cardinals in this situation. I'm going to have them going on to the finals, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because I just think the Dodgers will be able, in a best of 5, to take care of the Mets, the offense. Although the Mets, I think they're going to have to exhaust some of their good arms in this series of San Diego if they're going to get through. Hopefully, if it were them, they win their first 2, but at the same time, it's going to set them up for a tough game 1 and 2 against the Dodgers. If you fall 2 games behind the Dodgers in that kind of series, you're pretty much hooped. And then when we get to essentially what was a rematch of last year's wild card 1-game series where the Dodgers walked away with that walk-off run, just by 1 run, you're going to have a rematch in the Cardinals this time. You're going to get them in a best of 7. Unfortunately for them, I still am going to give the edge to the Dodgers. And that's going to break down how I see the National League playing out all through to the end of October and leading us to the World Series. So for now, let's jump over to my thoughts on the American League. Welcome back to this side of the American League. Now we got a few extra teams more than the National League, but at the same time, things are pretty much cemented at the top of things. I don't really need to say too much. The Houston Astros pretty much guaranteed to be the number 1 seed. I think for the most part, number 2 is pretty secure. We do got the New York Yankees holding on to that American League East number 1. They got about 5-game lead on the Blue Jays, and I do think they have a pretty simple schedule down the stretch here. If we just take a look here, it's Boston, Baltimore, Toronto, and Texas. So a little bit of a losing records for the most part. Toronto, obviously, the one team that I think has the best chance of catching them. Still 5 games back. Toronto would need to sweep that, I think, plus get some help along the way. So it won't be easy. If we start looking at some more question marks here on the board, number 3, we start to think, okay, that's going to be the American League Central. Who's going to win that? And for me, it's starting to be a little more clear. It's the Cleveland Guardians. They got a 5-game lead. They just beat Chicago White Sox last night. They do have another game tonight. Hasn't started yet. And down the stretch, they have somewhat of a easier schedule. Most specifically, they have 6 games against the Royals right at the end. Even if the White Sox are able to kind of catch that five games back that they are at to make it a little bit close, I think that edge of just being able to play the Royals for 6 games, and I think it's guaranteed 4 wins there for the Guardians. I think it'll be pretty easy. White Sox have Detroit, Minnesota, San Diego, and then another series against Minnesota, and I do have them missing the playoffs. Overall, the White Sox, those 6 games against Minnesota's pretty much out of it. I'm not even going to be talking about them other than this. They have a chance to really spoil the White Sox. I think that's their playoffs, and they're gonna take advantage of that and pretty much leave the White Sox in the dust. The other team that I have missing that we've talked about a little bit over the past is the Baltimore Orioles. They just have one of the toughest schedules down the stretch. 4 against Houston, Boston, New York Yankees, and Tampa Bay. And on top of all of that, they're 4.5 games out of the wild card. Just too late for them. Unfortunately, they had a good run, but I think at this point, it's pretty clear that they're going to miss. That brings us to this next part. Had a lot of thinking to do. I think overall, it was pretty clear to me that the number 6 seed was going to be Tampa Bay. I didn't like their schedule down the stretch. They got Toronto, Cleveland, Boston, Houston. They've struggled with Houston for sure over this past series. Haven't scored a run yet. Currently playing their 3rd game right now. Still haven't scored. So we'll see how that goes. And that leads us to number 4 and 5, which has these 2 teams. Realistically, it can go either way. Right now, I'm leaning towards the top team, home team, being the Toronto Blue Jays. Although it would not surprise me if Seattle comes out and does take it. They do have Oakland, Kansas City, Detroit, and Texas as their 4 series down the stretch. Toronto has like a tour around the American League, playing all the American League teams. But Toronto has played playoff baseball, it feels like now, for a month. Have won 7 series in a row. They're a team to watch out for. And unfortunately, it's going to result in Seattle. They're going to make the playoffs, and that's why I'm wearing their hat. They're finally going to break their drought. But I think it ends there for the most part. All right, so moving on, we get to look at the series here. This is interesting because I did this video a month ago. I had the Guardians pretty much, yes, they're going to be 3rd, but they're going to be the first team out. But in this case, after a lot of debate, honestly, I do think the Guardians have what it takes to upset. Because I know they're going to be the number 3 seed, but in my mind, it's going to be an upset. That's what I'm predicting. I'm predicting the Guardians to use their pitching really, and it's going to be a pitching battle. Tampa and the Guardians. I don't know. There's something in my gut that's telling me that that home field advantage is going to make a difference in that. And if we go on to this top series, I do think, even though Seattle has beat Jays both series this year, I think they're just getting hot at the right time, the Blue Jays are. And if you're a fan of this channel, you know I'm a Jays fan, but you also know that in the last video, I didn't really hold too much weight into them, and I actually thought they might miss the playoffs and all that stuff. I had them as the number 6 seed, so I've come around a little bit, and might be a little biased in that, but that's where I see things going right now. Moving along to this, best of 5, Houston going to be hosting Toronto. For the most part, in the past, Houston really has had Toronto's number, and I think it's going to play a big role, the fact that they had to play Seattle over the weekend. They're probably going to have to use some bullpen. Probably going to have to go through some of their good pitchers. It's going to lead them into a situation where they're used to playing poorly against Houston. This season, they actually did very well against Houston. But I think Houston just is a stronger team, and I would have them going on to the next round. And now we get to a situation where we have a somewhat struggling Yankees over the past 2 months or so. And we're going to have a team like the Guardians who are going to come in off a huge high. And this is going to be somewhat controversial, probably crazy. But I do actually think the Guardians are going to come out of this. I think they're going to have some momentum after winning that first series, coming out unexpected. And I just like what they've been doing. They've been playing some pretty solid baseball. They've been in a tight race all season long, playing meaningful games for the last few months. And the Yankees kind of been in this situation where they're guaranteed a bye for at least a long time. So I'm a little concerned whether the Yankees are going to be able to show up. Aaron Judge, I think if the Guardians find a way to really just pitch around him, and then they can shut this Yankees offense down. And that's been the Yankees' kryptonite all season long, is whether or not they can deal with pitching. And so far, that has not really been the case. And then that will lead us to a 7-game series. And unfortunately, I just think it's no question about it that the Astros are just going to dominate. They're going to dominate that 7-game series. I think the Astros are going to be in a good spot. If anywhere the Astros are going to lose it, it's going to be here against Toronto. But in any situation, I do like how they match up against the Yankees. I like how they match up against the Guardians. And even if they go against these teams, I think this series here is going to be the toughest part for the Astros, whether it be Seattle or Toronto. I think that's where the Astros really got to check out. So that puts us there. And if we're just going to whip it right out right now, I did have the Dodgers right going to the finals against the Astros. Wow, this feels like deja vu a little bit. These teams met ever many years ago, where the Astros were accused of trash canning it up, and this could be the chance for that to happen. It's going to be a rematch for the Dodgers in that situation. Honestly, this would make for a great World Series, but I'm going to stick with my pick. A little bit of bias because I've been picking them all season long. I guess it's like this. I'm going to be picking the LA Dodgers to continue to win the World Series. They've been my pick pretty much all season long, so I'm going to just stick with it because, hey, I think it's possible, and I think they're the strong candidate. Astros, very good shot as well. It's been great watching this season so far, watching it unfold. Let me know what you guys think of this bracket. What would you change? Where am I just completely out to lunch? It's probably this, but there are other things in there that you guys probably think. Maybe you have a different team making the playoffs altogether. Smash that like button, drop a comment below, and we will see you for that next video.